So I'm here at Margaret Fabricio's wonderful home, where we're in front of the quilt that she brought back from India recently. Tell me about this.
Well, when I found these Siddi people and found this one woman, Dungi, I went every day to watch her, and after a couple of days, she was working on a big quilt. And then when she saw that I was really serious, I mean, that's the reason I was there, right? So she said she was going to start a quilt and make a small piece so that I could see every step of the way. So she started at the very beginning, and then...
and this is it.
And this is it. She's a mystery. The whole thing is a mystery. I don't know how they're thinking, and they're not thinking. Mm-hmm. And whenever I would ask a question, I don't think she could even understand the question. So say she was sewing around, and she'd get over to here, and they cut as they go. So now you've got to keep going. You need a piece. So she'd have her pile of fabrics over there, scraps, old clothes, most of it, and she'd try one, reject it. She'd try maybe 3 or 4 pieces before she'd finally select one. And very often when she'd get to that, she'd get one and she'd look, and I would be saying to myself, not that one. I mean, we know that one's not going to work. And that would be the one she'd pick. Her sensibility, what she saw was different than what I see. And we're just victims of our culture. We're products of our culture, I should say.
So after watching her do this small piece for you, it was towards the end of your trip, you were heading home, and no doubt you were contemplating doing one yourself.
I couldn't wait.
And was that with a clear vision of what it was going to be, or with...
Oh, no, except of course, the number one thing was the technique. That's why I went. I wanted to learn the technique. Uh-huh. And I guess maybe I thought if I learned the technique, I'd have the other. Uh-huh. I got the technique.
Right.
But, of course, it's not perfect, but I mean, I know what you're supposed to, how to do it, which I didn't. That's why I went, because I couldn't figure out how to do it.
Right. So this was your first Siddi-style quilt.
Right. I thought I should start with something small. When I finished it, and it didn't look like theirs. It didn't have any of their mystery, and none of mine do, to my mind.
So how would you characterize the mystery of their quilts?
I don't know.
It's a mystery.
I don't. When you look at those quilts, I've just moved. It's the same with the G's Bend quilts. When I look at those, I'm very, very moved, and I just think, what? Why did they do that? And once when I asked her, I had a translator there. Of course, she didn't speak any English. I only met really a lot with one quilter, although there's a big community there. And so I asked the fellow translating, why did she put that yellow there? And he asked her, and I don't think she could understand the question. And then she they spoke, and then she just kind of rolled her eyes and pointed to her heart, because there's no you don't see that they're not highly designed, and since they're not intellectually designed, they have this spontaneous life to them.
So you find yourself intellectually designing yours?
It's hard not to think. You don't know how they're going to be till they're finished. Uh-huh. But the other way, when I designed the quilt, I have the whole thing. I know exactly where every piece is going to go.
So this is the second quilt that you did after coming back from India.
Yes.
And I see it's about twice as big as your first one.
Uh-huh.
So how is this one different than the first one?
Well, when I finished this one, I really hated it. I thought it was very ugly. That's how I felt when I finished it.
Uh-huh.
For one thing, I had it hanging horizontally,
Uh-huh.
and I recently changed it to vertical. I like it better. This is the third one,
Uh-huh.
and in this one, I tried to pick up an idea that many of the Siddi quilts do, is they have sometimes they have like 3 of those near the corners. So I did that to just, because it's a device that they use in their design. So they are thinking, when you take the last stitch, that means you're done. So this has now been filled in down, it's finished. Then you see it for the first time. It's a shock.
Right.
It's just a shock, the way things work.
Yeah.
But what I love about them is the way they work, and they're working the way they're working without you making it happen consciously. And then suddenly you're done and you say, wow, I mean, look at that. I wasn't thinking this is going to be so great when I put this little patch in. That's going to really mean a lot in the quilt. I didn't think anything like that. I just had this color, and I thought it would make a nice contrast or something. But then when I finished it, I thought that just makes it, you know.
Uh-huh.
Or say a crooked seam or something.
Right.
So you don't know. That's the exciting thing about it. It's just so much fun. The way I judge is not the way they judge. And so we've got a real problem here, because if I look at their quilts with my judgment, it's not the same as the way they look at their quilts,
Sure.
or that they would look at my quilts.
Yeah.
So this whole issue of the sensibility, we can't do anything about our sensibilities. I don't think we can change our sensibilities. All the time I was trying to not think. but I
Trying to
wasn't-
not think.
Yes, but I wasn't having much luck. That's hard.
Yeah.
That's very hard.
Yeah. But the cutting of pieces, the stitching,
That's
the
all
choices,
That's all the same.
that all.
Not the choices.
Uh-huh.
The choices are the mystery. Why choose that? I finally gave up on trying.
Uh-huh.
I decided I don't have the sensibility. I don't know. I don't see like they see. And so I could try to like figure it out,
Uh-huh.
right, and do it, but it still wouldn't have that.
Yeah.
And so then I just gave up.
Great.
I put a lot of things up on YouTube about all my trauma I was going through,
Uh-huh.
and people were saying, but your quilts are wonderful, you know, why don't you just do it your way? Do your, you know, why do you feel they don't have to look like Siddi quilts? And I thought, yeah, I guess that's true. So I quit trying to look like Siddi quilts.
Uh-huh.
And I tried certain things. Like one, I have this scrap pile here, and when it was time for a new piece, because you're sewing along, you run out of this. Then you got to put a piece here. You have to pick a piece. What's this going to be? You say you did that. Well, now what am I going to pick? So I would just go over. I would just close my eyes, and I had a pile of scraps here. I just pick it up.
So this was a bigger size.
I thought bigger might be easier. So then I did this one, and I used a lot of scraps that I got from tailors in India, leftover pieces. You know, I haunted the tailors' places, and
Uh-huh.
they saved me their scraps.
Uh-huh.
So a lot of this, not all of it, but like the extravagant pieces, the silks and things, that was from India. I tried to use stuff that I knew wouldn't work.
Uh-huh.
Like when I had been watching her and she'd pick a piece that I wouldn't pick. That happened a lot.
Uh-huh.
So I thought, okay, pick pieces that I think don't work.
Uh-huh.
Because of, you know, I'm a victim of my of fashion, my culture. For instance, this orange piece in the middle of this turquoise, bad, really bad. I just saw, but I thought that's the reason you're just going to have to use that. And of course, it's wonderful. That has the flavor. That one little spot, because that's just a kind of outrageous, to me, a thing that you would do is put those colors together. They're not good together, to me.
Right.
But then they do it their way, and I like when they do it. It's very strange.
Yeah.
What I'm starting to see or recognize now is that the interest in these quilts is in where something turns. So this is one thing, but if you can give the impression something turned, you see this, right? Or you see even this. I can stare at one for hours and be in just very happy state. Because there's so much to look at. It seems like the longer I look at them, the more there is to see. And then this totally outrageous fabric that I put in this, I mean, that's not from India, and that's just really blatantly, totally out of place to me. But I had the guts to put it in there, and it's an integral part of the quilt. I mean, it's part of the life of the quilt. See, like this. What's that all about? That's Siddi. What's that all about? The one where I just picked them up and where I wasn't looking.
So this was the fifth one.
And this was, I have a friend who just gave me about 20 pairs of old boxer shorts. So that's what this is made out of, mainly almost all that. So they're worn fabrics. That may be part of it, is I've got so much new fabrics in my stash. I have a huge stash. They're using old clothes. They're using scraps from tailors, but they're also using old clothes. And old clothes have a softness to them. It just looks different. You know, the colors aren't so popping. And that may be one reason that this has a different feel to it.
This doesn't look like boxer shorts to me.
No. This is mainly all scraps from Indian tailors. Lots of gold and glitter and. But by then I was getting used to the idea that this one thing that works is what you think won't work. So, I mean, the idea of putting in just some everyday common piece of cotton in the midst of all this gold and all this silver, actually, that's not something I would normally do. But now, I feel like I'm a bigger person, actually, and a bigger artist since I've had this. It's expansive, doing something new like this. And then I thought, no, that white was definitely not going to work. It's going to be too bright. It's not going to work with everything else. We have this thing, I have a thing, everything should blend and work well together, and everything, right? But actually, I mean, that white is what's making the quilt. And the shininess of it, the satin and all of that. And then this. It's like, that's very important. I thought at the time that maybe this fabric and this, you know, I tried to do things like that. But
you mean where they
actually,
spoke with each other?
They're subtle. And the obvious, I find more pleasing once it's over. You know, once I can see it. See, I just caught myself better. What's this better? Well, you know, what's that all about anyway? And to not be judging them. Then I was starting to figure out. Just keep sawing them, and they're going to be changing. They're changing, and enjoy. You know, take it. You can make another one. This was the next one, and I was starting to feel better. Well, this is when I decided I wasn't going to try to make them, I was going to follow my instinct. You know, if Doongi could follow her heart, why couldn't I follow mine? You know, they didn't have to look like hers. And so this, first, two things happened with this one. Well, as you see, I did the border thing. And then there's not so much print, it's more solid colors.
Yeah.
So that's one reason I think it works well. But then you might want to get a close-up. There's some fabric I've had for a very long time that I was saving for some special moment. But I mean, certainly you wouldn't want to put it in a Siddi quilt. So I did that, and you see this?
Yeah. Indeed.
So I've got those little garter belt things and the legs, the high-heeled shoes. So I was able to, that was what I wanted to do, so I just did it. And that took me somewhere else. Now we're starting to see that I've given up trying to make them look like they came out of African India, you know, I'm who I am, and that take it or leave it. And then I had this awful fabric I've had a long time. I bought it in India very many years ago. It's very gross color, and it's just perfect now. And just look at this. Now I didn't intend to do that. But it's very, very important to the success of the piece, the crooked line. You know, in the midst of all of this maybe attempted regularity, then something goes, that's where, those little irregularities, that's where you get the rhythm. It's not satisfaction, it's surrender. It's surrender. Okay. But now what? You know, I finished that. Now what? I mean, I've just gotten started. And I have, you know, they're going to change, and it's interesting to see what's going to happen. I had this a piece of fabric that had this element around the edges, and so it's from India. Let's see, for many years I've just bought clothes and fabrics in India. So you can sometimes buy Indian fabrics here. So I'm using a lot of those. There some of them are fabrics that I would never put in a proper quilt because they're not good enough. They're too coarsely woven, or they're satin or something. But now there's no restriction. This is something they do frequently, having a smaller piece in a larger piece.
In terms of the actual practice, the stitching, the sewing, the cutting, the choosing, you've got that down now.
Not the choosing.
Not the choosing. Okay.
No, but I've got the technique. The choosing is not technique. The choosing is sensibility or heart. Or subliminal, the mystery. Why did she pick that? You know, why did I put this here? You know, why didn't I put it here? Or what's this all about? That's not part of technique. This one needed a friend, so then I made that one. So that they would I'd have a pair on this wall. I didn't want to waste wall space, but I had to, you know, they had to look good together. I don't even look at the Siddi quilts anymore. It's too disturbing. Or it's where I know that it was hanging me up. I kept feeling like they should look like theirs. You know, and then realizing that may not happen. I shouldn't get uptight about it. I thought I really went overboard on this one.
Overboard in what sense?
Ugly. Where do we get these ideas?
Yeah.
I mean, they're just like, what a dumb thing to be saying or judging or whatever. But that was my response. I just thought, that this is not working at all. It's just too much going on. You don't know what to look at, and it's too much. But, you know, after I live with it for a while, I start to really appreciate it. This is a true Siddi piece. This is Doomgie's piece, the piece she made for me. And when she was working on this, she lived in a house, and then she had a neighbor. They've lived together their whole lives, and they both make quilts. And their mothers made quilts, and they're in their 70s. So Doomgie was making this. She did, there's a border for you. And then she worked her way around, and she got about into here, and her friend got up and went back over to her house and came back to Doomgie's porch. She was sitting out on the porch doing this, and as she walked by, she just threw down the green, this red, and the yellow, as though she knew Florin was her name, as though she felt Doomgie needed some different colors or something. No comment, nothing, just threw it down and left, she was gone. And so then that made this, and this green. And then where'd these come from? I mean, I was just like, whoa, I mean, I don't understand why she did that. And I'm intrigued by it. Why don't I understand? Number one, why does it bother me that I don't understand? It's all, there's so much going on. I mean, white. And look how they're crooked. No problem. Look at this. Something didn't fit right. No problem.
And this has the sort of chevrons in the corner.
Yeah, I went back to that. I thought since it was so big, it might not be as disturbing as the ones in the other. Although, I don't know why they disturbed me, but...
How do you feel about them in this one?
Well, they help to give it the Siddi stamp. You know, because the Siddi quilts, so many of them do have those. They'll do that, or they, on a big quilt, then they might do another set here. This is something they do. This thing, you know, and which I did again over here, and with the same contrasting fabric. I just liked the way that's what they're doing. I like it, so they do it, right? If you could just keep it down to that, it'll be fine.
Right.
I don't know what a quilt is going to look like. If you're sitting there and you're sewing here, and you're on your way over there, and you're not looking over there, by the time you get over here, you even forgot that orange. So now you look at this part in its terms, and see what looks good here. You're not thinking about what's over here and how is this all going to tie together and what's the grand design and all of that. At least I'm not. That was the feeling I got from them, that they're not working like that.
So is it fair to say its involvement with just a process of quilting as a verb as opposed to a product?
Yes, and it's actually it's not even just quilting. It's construction. You're building the quilt, right? You're building it as you go, like a tile roof. You layer a piece on top of a piece and piece. There's no machine. We never said that. There's no machine, no pins, no rulers, there's nothing. Just you and this giant needle. Not Siddi. This is definitely not Siddi. I had this really bizarre fabric with a bunch of giant flowers on it, and it was just so bizarre. I didn't know how I would ever use that. It's one piece, and of course it's all quilted though. But that was something different I haven't done on any other quilts. So I have a lot of ideas.